Before we begin, we ask for those that have a cell phone or pager if you could turn to the silent mode. Officiating is Rabbi Shlomo Crandall.
Is that good?
I'm good, thank you.
Friends, you have some more chairs if anybody wants to have a seat.
Mizmor LeDavid Adonai mi yagor b'alecha mi yishkam b'har kodshecha Olech tamu fo'el tzedek v'dover emes bilvavo L'ragala l'shano l'asal l'rei ra v'cher palon l'asal krobo nivze ben av nimas Yes yirei Adonai yichabed nishpal l'harav lo yamir Kaspo lo nasam b'neshech v'shochad al makilo lakach Ose'ele lo yimot l'olam.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. We're a small family, so everyone's presence is much appreciated. Your support, and we are grateful that you came. Halakha is very clear about how you're supposed to be maspid a loved one. I spoke to Rabbi first, spoke to Rabbi Levitansi, spoke to Rabbi Crandall. You're not supposed to embellish. You're not supposed to be hyperbolic. You're not supposed to exaggerate. So I had three ways to play this. I could ignore the halacha and just paint a picture. I could not say anything at all. I could pass on it. I thought a lot about that. Or I thought I could, without revealing too much, just kind of tell it the way it was. And I think if you do it that way, my understanding of the halacha is it's best for the nifter. It's keeping it real, and it's serious business when you're masked with someone to be truthful. Rabbi Crandall asked me last night. He said, "What would you say to your mother?" So I started thinking about what I would say, and I hit roadblocks every way I hit it. So I thought if I can keep it together, I'm going to speak to my sisters, and then within the context of my mother. So it's no secret. My mother had significant mental health issues that she battled with, which were that just essentially froze her for a good portion of her life, and kind of tethered with an addiction she had. There was a lot of chaos, just a lot of chaos. But through that chaos, and we all kind of went our own ways, just to kind of keep it together. But there were tremendous lessons we learned in our family, and those lessons come from my mother, not ironically either. So I wanted to talk to my sisters, and I think if we go through the life lessons that we learned from my mom, I think it kind of explains kind of who we've become, and that's important. So with regards to my mother, she had a strong affinity for Jewishness. She was very Jewish. She was very Jewish. My father's first language was Yiddish, and she was enthralled with Yiddish, and she reveled when my father would speak to his mother in Yiddish. He spoke it was his first language, and she took lessons, and she struggled with it, but she really appreciated Yiddish, and I think that was the first spark that I saw that our family had a real Jewish element to it. We ended up joining the shul. It was a conservative congregation of the North Shore. The rabbi of the shul was Rabbi Frankel. He was Musaf Rav Soloveitchik. He went the conservative route, but it, in the old days, in the day when conservative meant something, it had a tremendous amount of minhagim. And my mother's decision was to kind of go that route with that shul. And it was very important to her. I remember early on that she wanted to be the first woman at that shul to dance with the Sefer Torah on Simchas Torah, and she was. And it was something that stuck with me from a very early age. Her desire. We went to Friday night services at Hillcrest Junior High, and I don't know if you remember that, or Wendy, if you remember, that was a long time ago. But we went to Friday night services and we did Israeli dancing, and it was very unusual coming from the family that we came from to kind of experience Shabbos like that. We didn't obviously keep Shabbos, but we did events like that. In the middle 70s, when the Refusnik movement came about with Sharansky and ultimately Mendelevich and the Leningrad trials, my mother took us to the J for different protests. I don't know if Andy, Wendy, if you remember that, but she took us there, and it emboldened and it kind of planted a seed in me in terms of not activism, that being Jewish was very, very important to her. Around that time, the Soviet gymnast team had come to Chicago to perform. I think it was Olga Korbut. If you guys remember going to that event, remember, Andy? And they all stood up. They all stood up to the Russian national anthem. And my mom said, "We're not standing up. We're not standing up for that at all. We're gonna sit down because we're Jewish." And even though we came from Wilmette, and even though we were not from, she planted deep seeds with regards to Jewishness, whether it was language, whether it was activism, or whether it was Friday night dancing, and that kind of I think planted the seeds where we ultimately where we would go in our lives. I have distinct memories of going to the Cubs game with my buddies during Pesach, and Mom would make kosher Pesach bagels, and we had kosher Pesach food, and it was very unusual where we lived. We had our own set of dishes, and it wasn't the Pesach that we keep now, but it was a tremendous learning experience, and we kept the Pesach home for all intents and purposes. And that was from her. That wasn't from Dad. Even though Dad was a Yiddish speaker and had a lot of the European values, he really did, it was Mom who gave us a sense of what it meant to be Jewish. She had a million friends. She would walk into a room, and she knew everybody. There was a time, I remember once, in the old days, she called 411 to make a phone call, and she knew the operator. She knew the operator. So she knew just tons of people. And she was generous with gifts. She gave gifts to all of her friends' children. Not sure we got a lot of gifts, but she gave gifts to them, and she showed us from an early age how important it was to be generous. She was an incredible cook. She was a great host, and she was funny. She had a great sense of humor. She could make you laugh, and when she was, when she wasn't in that dark place, and when she was clear thinking, she was funny. She was really funny. She taught us hard work. She always had a job. And we always had jobs. Andy, I don't ever remember a time you didn't have a job. Same with you, Wendy, and I. We always had jobs. We always had our own money, and we worked. And that was to her. That was her insistence. She made sure we always worked, and from a very young age. I know one specific memory that when I had a paper route, and I broke the window of the Haberjacks, and I spent the whole year earning up the money to pay for that, and she helped me roll papers. But it was important to her that she hold us responsible, and I got that from her. She was incredibly creative, artistic, and wrote poetry. She wrote beautiful, beautiful poetry. And she did pottery, and she painted, and she wrote. And she was in many ways a real worker. She made sure we all shoveled in the winter. My father didn't shovel. We shoveled. Remember the storm of '67? I mean, we were out there like, I don't know, it was like it was like a POW camp. We were out there all night. That woman wouldn't let us come in. We shoveled. I don't know, I was 5. Remember that? It was crazy. And I think Dad finally said, you gotta let these kids come in. They're just, they shoveled so much. So she taught us a work ethic. She taught us how to speak to waiters and waitresses. And our kids speak that way. She taught us how to speak to a cleaning lady. You were not to call her a maid. You were not to call her a cleaning lady. She made sure you cleaned your room before that cleaning lady came the few times she came, because it was so important that we have respect for those kinds of people, who provided those services. Teachers were always right in our house. Teachers were never wrong. Teacher was never wrong, and I've kind of embedded that in my children. It's been a source of consternation, to say the least. But she had a lot of issues. She just did. It's going to be hard. So we all went our own way. We were young. But we all came back, and she came to us years later and saw us all together. And she came up to me one day and she said, "How did you guys do this?" And she really appreciated. She wanted family. It was just too much that she didn't understand. And with addiction and mental health, it can be chaos. But we're all here. We made a family, and a lot is because of her. And Mom, I want to apologize. For leaving so young. I want to apologize for all of us leaving. I hope you understood. I hope you understood that we did what we did in order to survive. We're grateful for your gifts. And I totally understand that it wasn't a question of wouldn't. I think it was a question of you just couldn't, you still understand how to make a family. But in the end you did. And we're grateful.
This is not confusing. It's always hard to be his sister because everyone always says, "Oh, that's your brother," and they laugh. So, do my best. So I wasn't going to speak today, but I think it's important for me to do so, not just for me, but for my own children and my entire family. Where are my kids? Where's Abigail? Eliyahu? Where's Eliyahu? Addressing this with honesty and kavod is no easy feat, but I will do my best. There are many things I can thank my mom for, but today I want to thank her for showing me what to prioritize. When I was a kid, I wanted one thing, a close family. I remember saying my prayers at night and asking God for this over and over again. But coming from was the best model I knew to make this happen, so I thank my mom for guiding me on this path. Tali, Noe, Eliyahu, and Abigail. Your Savta taught me that nothing is more important than making one's children feel 100% loved and accepted for who they are, no matter what. While you tease me for my openness about potential life choices, it comes from a deeply rooted place. And why I used to tuck you in with the words, "There's nothing you could ever do to make me not love you." My siblings and I still to this day joke about what we went through. But Andy and Hal, I propose that from this day forward, we focus instead on what we built. Through what I would call a true nace, not only did we all marry the kindest people, but we have created our own beautiful family. I believe that Mom and Dad shep nachas from seeing us sit around the table on Yom Tovim and Shabbosim and watching us walk our kids to the chuppah. Most of all, I know how they admire how, despite everything, we remain fiercely loyal to each other and share a bond that is as unique as it is powerful. Mom, I thank you for giving me siblings. I would not have survived without them. Andy and Hal, you are the most selfless and generous people I have ever met. This is most apparent in the way you raise your kids and the relationships you have with them. Andy, you would and have given the shirt off your back to Mikey and Shayna. And Shauna, Tani, Fry, and Abidan, now you know why I so often tear up when I watch your dad petchka you or crack up with you or wrestle you or hug you. I would be remiss if I didn't publicly show my gratitude to my sister-in-law, Rachel. You helped me navigate and survive this highly nuanced, complex, and painful journey, but you also treated my mom with dignity, and you showed her chesed in the most sacred ways to which only I was privy to. Joel, there's no way I can adequately thank you for your unending patience over this journey. That too was no easy feat. Mom, over the past year, I didn't show you proper kibbud abayim, but I hope you understand why. It was hard for me to do so. I ask you to please machal me and please be matzliach for our entire family, my sweet husband, Fush Lane, and all our children, our precious Zachary and Ellie Shefa, and I pray that your family at peace.
She was my savta. I knew her my whole life. She was one of the first people to hold me and to cuddle me and to love me. I heard she gave me my first bath. I wouldn't be here without her. Many people here wouldn't be here without her, physically. I don't know where my neshama would be. Maybe it would be with someone else, I don't know. But I am here because of her. She was the matriarch of our family. She was a woman who loved Judaism, loved the Jewish people, and loved Israel. Naturally, simply, uncomplicated. I view her as a grandson. And even though she was the youngish grandmother, she was the youngish grandmother. You always view your grandmother as an older person. And she became incredibly old the last couple of years. But at one point, she was young. And she was young and beautiful. And she was young and beautiful during a great time in world history. In the 1950s and 1960s, she was raising a family in America. It might be the best time ever. And she took advantage of it. She did. She was so charming and vivacious. My first memory as a kid is going over to Papi and Savta's house. And they'd have 100 people over. And she was the hostess. And she was funny, as Uncle Hal mentioned. And she was caring. And she had so many friends, just so many friends. that she loved and cared about so deeply. And they loved and they cared deeply about her too. And she had a husband who she loved and adored. And her husband loved and adored her too. She had 4 children and many grandchildren and many great-grandchildren that she loved. That's a pretty good life. It's a pretty good life. I don't know what happens after we depart this world. That's the big question. That's the question. I could only just imagine that if heaven is worthy of her, she's hosting some big party up in Shemayim right now. And I love Savta and I love Papi, and they're together. And yeah, life goes on. And that's really all I have to say. And I'm glad to be here. This is an amazing world, and I have that gift thanks to Savta. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I'm Batel Lieberman. I'm Michael's wife. My experience with Savta was a beautiful one. In the past 13 years, I was privileged to have another Savta, and building relationship with her was really meaningful. And we were very lucky to make her a great Savta. For us, she was a great Savta, and she was there as a great Savta also to our kids, our great grandkids. It was meaningful for our daughters to go and visit her. But I actually want to share a moment. When I met my husband and I started dating him, one of the first things he told me was, "You have to speak with my Savta. You have to meet her. She loves Israel." And then on the first call, she told me about her trips to Israel, about volunteering with the soldiers. But one of the things that he mentioned was about the parties that she used to host. And specifically this Yom Kippur parties, break the fast meals. And he will always talk about her hospitality and the way she opened her house and hosted those parties. And it came to my mind that her name is Rivka. And Rivka, we meet Rivka in the Tanakh, and that's what we remember from her, hospitality. When Eliezer come and look for a wife for Yitzchak, he gets to Be'er Mayim and he sees a woman, it's Rivka, and he asks her, Agmieni me'at mayim, he's asking just for a little bit of water. But she offers him everything. She gives him a kad, a pitcher, not just a little bit of water. And she offers him to stay and food and so much. And it really connected me to the stories that I heard about Savta, about her hospitality. And then it made sense with me going to Uncle Helen and Rachel's house and Aunt Wendy and Uncle Joel's house. And I'm sure that many of you were there when they opened their house and they welcome you. It's with the same manners of Achnasat Orchim. So for me, besides really being a great Savta, Savta Babi is someone that I will take for my kids and I will pass it, this idea of Achnasat Orchim.
Rivka Bas Michael, Mrs. Roberta Garfinkel, came to this world some 88 years ago. I stand before you today as a friend, and honestly, I did not know your mom, your grandmother, great-grandmother, and only really know her through as much as I know you guys. When we met and we were talking last night, I learned many of the things that were already described. I learned of an outgoing, gregarious woman who was blessed to have many friends, who loved fashion, wrote poetry, loved decorating, took care of her home. The largest of parties, Hanukkah parties. I think there's a debate in the family if dozens of people or hundreds of people came to break the fast. And so you ask, how many people actually showed up? I learned that your mom was a devoted wife who every Saturday night went out, no matter what, with Dad, every Saturday night. She was also a widow for almost 30 years. And that was difficult for her, between her back pain, between infection that she had in her fingers, and taking care of her father, who had a stroke when she was a young mother herself. She had hard times, and she cared for a very sick child as well, the beginning of her marriage. Her home was a Jewish one. Her children went to Hebrew school, as Hal intimated, a proud Zionist, an advocate for Soviet Jewry, Holocaust education. Hannah even remembered a mezuzah she had on her car door. But there's another way to know someone beyond what they tell you, and that is to look at their children, at their grandchildren, and at their great-grandchildren. Roberta left 4 children: Pam, Andy, Hal, and Wendy. 10 grandchildren: Michael, Shana, Talia, Noe, Eliyahu, Abigail, Shana, Tani, Ephraim, and Avidan. And 10 great-grandchildren: Zachary, Elisheva, Ella, Gav, Mason, Mia, Achinoam, Ariel, Alon, and Ori. If you really want to know someone, look at their family. When I asked them last night what they've learned, they told me, work hard. This is what we learned from our mother. Work hard. Be kind. Look out for the less fortunate and take care of them. Use the blessings the Almighty has given you to the fullest. Well, I don't know all of the 24 descendants of Rivka Bas Michael, and more to come, please God. I do know some of you well, and some of you very well. And I can unequivocally say that you learned those lessons well. What it means to work hard. What it means to be kind and look out for the less fortunate. To take care of people who have less and lack the opportunities. And to use the blessings that the Almighty gave you to the fullest. This is the family that your mom produced. You. As you say farewell to your mom, I ask that you look at yourselves and believe you will be able to see an image of your mother and the home she so wanted to build. Chazal tell us we have many Yemei Hadin. Erev Rosh Chodesh is Yom Kippur Katan. Yom Kippur we have every year, but the real Yom Hadin, the ultimate Yom Hadin, is the day that we all meet our Maker. We do 2 things on Yom Kippur, and more importantly, on the ultimate Yom Hadin. We ask forgiveness, and we forgive. We ask forgiveness, and we forgive. We together daven that Rivka Bas Michal will have a lichta Gan Eden, a Gan Eden of light. The Melech HaMelachim will look at your mother, her accomplishments, and look at all of you and the Jewish and Torah families that you have built. The mitzvah of Kibbut Horim continues even after we lose our parent. And we show it in tefillah, in our actions, in our ability to look at the beauty and the good. My tefillah is that you find comfort in the memory of your mom, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and move forward with strength and resilience. May your soul be bound to the bond of eternal life. Burying the deceased is referred to as chesed shel emes, kindness of truth, because when we do this mitzvah of burying our loved one, we ask nothing in return. The custom is that when you finish, you put the shovel down and you let the next person take the shovel after. También Pablo si todo Asur también hol poal mi marlo mati fala shi mata mal mi mit me kayo na lit show ya ala asur también hol masa mi mar la mata so me va sa fasa khina la sa so sana ka ke sa shi va sa sadik le khol khavat asur también mer khatay mar la khamim khamol na ba khushna al bas va nim kil khadon hasu khos va khamim صديق عطاء لنا الله عم يصبح خياصة شبيت خافي كان كل بخوص חלילה לך זכרני במחוז, יונה עיניך ברחם בן פקוחוז, כי לך אדון הרחמים והסליחות. אדם עם בן שנה יהיה ולב של מחיה, מה יסרום כלו היה יהיה ברוך דיין הנס מנס מחיה. ברוך הוא כי הנס דינו משוטט הכל בינו, משלום אדם חשבונו, ודינו להכל בשמו הדי הייתנו. ידענו אדוני כי צדק משפטיך, תצדק בדבריך ותזכה בשופטיך. והן להר אחר מידה שופטיך, צדיק אתה אדוני, ישר משפטיך. דיין אמת שופט צדק ואמת, ברוך דיין אמת שכל משפטיו צדק ואמת. נפש כל חי בידיך, מצדק מלא ימינך וידיך, רחם על פליטת צום ידיך, ותמר במלאך חרף ידיך. גדול היצב רב הלוויה, שעיניך פקוחות הכל דרכי בני אדם, ועשית איש כדרכיו וכפקדים עליו. נגיד כאשר אדוני צרי בו, בלסה בו. אדוני נשן ואדוני לקח. ישם אדוני מבורך, ברחום יכפר בם לא ישבס. וירבו להשיב אפו בו יאיר כל חמסו. אלמד הרחמים שוכן במרומים, המצאי מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלוז קדושים מטורים כזוהר רקיע מזהיריהם, אז נשמע רבקה בת מיכאל שלחה לעולמו, ועבור שמשפחתה עינו לצדקה ברזכרס נשמסה בגן עדן תהי מנוחסה, וכן בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בססר כנפיו לעולמים, יצרה בצרה חיים את נשמסה, אדוני הוא נחלסה, ושנוח בשלום עם נשכבה ונאמר אמן.
This includes the Kvur. Shiva will be at the Garfinkel residence, Shachris every morning at 7 o'clock, Mincha Marav at 8:05, and Sunday Shachris at 8 o'clock. If we can form a Shura, aisleway leading away from the grave.
So you're saying after Mincha Marav tonight?
There'll be Mincha Marav tonight too. Yes, at 8:05. If we can form a Shura leading away from the grave, and the immediate mourners will walk through.
Just come together with Lenny. Way forward.